George, have you had film offers?
I would like to try it one day, but I think I'm going to wait until people are not so concerned about seeing George Michael, and also until people stop offering me lousy parts.
George Michael was more than a pop icon. He was a man of immense talent, complexity, and hidden struggles. While the world celebrated his music, few knew about the difficult truths he faced behind the scenes. His journey was marked by personal battles, family challenges, and untold hardships. In this video, we're uncovering the disturbing truths about George Michael and his family that remained hidden for so long, shedding light on the untold story behind the legend. What new revelations have surfaced about George Michael's life? What were the secrets of the man who gave the world timeless hits, but also fought personal demons behind the scenes? Join us as we explore these new insights into George's life. But first, let's discover who George Michael truly was. The making of a pop superstar. Georgios Kyriacos Panayiotou, better known as George Michael, was born on June 25, 1963, in East Finchley, London. His father, Kyriacos Panayiotou, was a Greek Cypriot restaurateur who emigrated to the UK in search of a better life, while his mother, Leslie Angold Harrison, was an English dancer who brought creativity and artistic influence into their household. Growing up in a multicultural environment, George was exposed to a unique blend of Greek traditions and British culture, which shaped his early years. However, his childhood was not without its difficulties. The family faced financial challenges, and George often felt like an outsider due to the cultural clash between his father's traditional Greek values and his own evolving identity. His father's strict, conservative upbringing added to this tension, leaving George feeling somewhat disconnected and misunderstood at home. Despite these hardships, George's love for music provided him with an escape from the struggles of his personal life. From an early age, he showed a deep passion for music, drawn especially to the pop stars of the 1970s. He idolized figures like Elton John, David Bowie, artists who were not only known for their musical talent, but also for their ability to challenge norms and push boundaries with their performances and personas. These icons would become significant influences in George's own musical journey, inspiring him to pursue a path where music could be both a form of self-expression and a refuge from the complexities of his personal world. As he entered adolescence, George's sense of identity became more complicated. He struggled with issues related to self-image, particularly regarding his appearance. Wearing large glasses and feeling awkward in his own skin, George's teenage years were marked by insecurity. The pressures of society, combined with his own personal doubts, made this period of his life challenging. Nonetheless, it was during these formative years that George's connection to music deepened. It became a source of solace and empowerment for him. He began playing in local bands and even took up DJing at school dances, immersing himself in the vibrant world of music whenever he could. These experiences helped him gain confidence and refine his understanding of his own musical talents. One of the most pivotal moments in George's life occurred during his teenage years when he met Andrew Ridgeley at Bushy Meads School. The two quickly formed a close bond over their shared love of music and their mutual desire to break free from the confines of suburban life. Both boys were ambitious, determined to escape the dullness of their surroundings, and they found in each other the perfect partner to pursue their musical dreams. Little did they know that this friendship would soon give rise to one of the most iconic and successful pop duos of the 1980s. Wham! Wham! Became a phenomenon, skyrocketing George and Andrew to fame with their infectious pop songs, carefree image, and youthful energy. The duo's upbeat music and charismatic performances made them global stars, particularly with hits like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Club Tropicana, and Last Christmas. While Wham's success was meteoric, it was also a period of great personal growth for George. Despite the playful image that the band projected, George began to feel the weight of his own artistic ambitions and his desire to explore deeper, more introspective themes in his music. He was also grappling with his sexuality, which remained private during the height of Wham's fame, but which would later play a significant role in his life and career. After Wham disbanded in 1986, George embarked on a solo career that would solidify his status as one of the greatest pop stars of his generation. His debut solo album, Faith, 1987, was a critical and commercial success, showcasing George's versatility as an artist and his ability to blend pop, R&B, and soul influences seamlessly. Songs like Faith, Father Figure, and One More Try became global hits, and George's sultry, soulful voice, combined with his introspective lyrics, set him apart from many of his contemporaries. However, fame came with its own set of challenges. Throughout his career, George Michael battled personal demons, including struggles with his sexuality, substance abuse, and legal troubles. His 1998 arrest for lewd conduct in a public restroom in Beverly Hills was a turning point in his life, forcing him to publicly acknowledge his homosexuality. Despite the media frenzy that followed, George emerged from the incident with a renewed sense of freedom, becoming an outspoken advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and using his platform to promote causes close to his heart. George Michael's legacy is one of immense talent, resilience, and authenticity. His ability to craft timeless pop music, combined with his willingness to be vulnerable and honest about his personal struggles, endeared him to millions of fans around the world. Even after his untimely death on December 25, 2016, George Michael's music continues to inspire, and his influence on pop culture remains undeniable. His life and career serve as a testament to the power of music as a force for personal expression and societal change. Wham! The beginning of stardom. In 1981, George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley formed Wham, a band that would soon take the world by storm. Their energetic pop sound, catchy hooks, and youthful exuberance made them an instant hit, particularly with younger audiences. Their debut album, Fantastic, was released in 1983 and spawned several hits, including Wham Rap and Club Tropicana, but it was their second album, Make It Big, that catapulted them to international fame. With hits like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Careless Whisper, and Freedom, Wham became a global sensation. George's smooth vocals and Andrew's carefree charisma made them the poster boys for the 1980s pop scene. Their music videos, which featured bright colors, flashy fashion, and infectious energy, captured the essence of the decade's fun and carefree spirit. But behind the scenes, George was beginning to feel the pressure of fame and the limitations of being in a pop duo. By the mid-1980s, Wham was at the height of its popularity. They became the first Western pop group to perform in China, marking a significant moment not only for their career, but also for global pop culture. The concert in China was more than just a performance. It was a symbolic moment that demonstrated the power of music to cross boundaries. However, as Wham reached new heights, George began to feel creatively constrained by the group's image and sound. While Wham was riding high on success, George was already envisioning a future as a solo artist. He had written and performed Careless Whisper, one of the band's most iconic songs, and it was clear that his songwriting abilities were evolving beyond the confines of bubblegum pop. George's desire for artistic growth led to tension within the band, and by 1986, Wham announced their split. Their farewell concert, the final, at Wembley Stadium, was a bittersweet moment for fans and for George himself. He was closing a chapter that had brought him fame, but he was also stepping into a new era as a solo artist. Going solo, the birth of a musical legend. When George Michael decided to go solo, the music world held its breath. Many wondered if he could replicate the success he had achieved with Wham. But George was determined to prove that he was more than just a pop star. His first solo album, Faith, released in 1987, silenced all doubts. Faith was a commercial and critical triumph, selling over 25 million copies worldwide. The album showcased George's versatility as an artist, blending pop, R&B, funk, and soul influences into a sound that was distinctly his own. With hits like Faith, Father Figure, and One More Try, George proved that he could craft songs that were not only catchy, but also deeply emotional and introspective. The title track, Faith, became an anthem of the late 1980s, with its infectious rhythm and George's iconic leather jacket and guitar look. The song's success solidified George's status as a solo superstar, but it was tracks like Father Figure and One More Try that revealed his ability to convey vulnerability and raw emotion. These songs were a reflection of George's personal struggles, particularly his internal battle with his sexuality, which he had not yet publicly acknowledged. The success of Faith earned George numerous awards, including a Grammy for Album of the Year. The album's widespread appeal cemented his place in the pantheon of pop royalty, and he soon embarked on a world tour. However, the fame and success that Faith brought also came with a heavy burden. George began to feel increasingly uncomfortable with the public image he had crafted, which he felt was more of a character than a true representation of himself. By the early 1990s, George was determined to move away from the high-energy, hyper-masculine image that had defined his Faith era. His next album, Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1, released in 1990, was a stark departure from his previous work. The album was more introspective, with George focusing on themes of love, loss, and self-reflection. He chose not to appear in the music videos for any of the album's singles, most notably for Freedom 90, a move that symbolized his desire to step back from the limelight and let the music speak for itself. While Listen Without Prejudice was not as commercially successful as Faith, it was critically acclaimed and is now considered one of George's most artistically ambitious works. Songs like Praying for Time and Heal the Pain showcased a deeper, more contemplative side of George as he grappled with fame, identity, and his place in the world. Coming Out, a turning point. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, George Michael was one of the most successful pop stars in the world, but he kept his sexuality private, navigating an industry that was often hostile to openly gay artists. At the time, the entertainment world, especially pop music, was not a safe space for those who did not conform to heteronormative expectations. George was well aware of the potential backlash he could face if he revealed his true self. His choice to remain closeted was influenced not only by the pressures of fame, but also by the cultural climate, where being openly gay could lead to professional alienation and personal hardship. For George, this was a deeply personal struggle, compounded by the loss of his first love, Brazilian designer Anselmo Felipe, to AIDS in 1993. This tragic event had a profound impact on George, and though he mourned privately, it was a pivotal moment in shaping his future openness about his sexuality. The turning point came in 1998 when George's personal life was thrust into the spotlight in the most public and humiliating of ways. He was arrested in a public restroom in Beverly Hills for engaging in what was described as a lewd act. The incident made headlines around the world, and the media had a field day with the scandal, treating it as both a source of salacious gossip and an opportunity to ridicule a star who had maintained a carefully crafted public image. For George, the incident was both a moment of personal crisis and an opportunity for liberation. Forced to confront his sexuality in the public eye, George decided to embrace his truth, publicly coming out as gay shortly after the arrest. While this public revelation was undoubtedly painful, it was also freeing for George. In interviews following the incident, he spoke openly about the struggles he had faced in coming to terms with his sexuality and the difficulties of leading a double life. He acknowledged that he had been afraid of the professional consequences of coming out earlier in his career, but also admitted that the weight of keeping his true identity hidden had taken a toll on his mental health. Despite the tabloid frenzy, many of George's fans stood by him, applauding his courage in a time when being openly gay was still stigmatized. His public coming out was a groundbreaking moment, as few mainstream artists in the music industry had done so at that point, particularly not at the peak of their careers. In the years following his coming out, George became more open about his sexuality, both in his personal life and in his artistic work. Rather than shy away from the scandal of his 1998 arrest, he faced it head-on with humor and defiance. His 1998 single Outside was a prime example, as it directly referenced the arrest, complete with a tongue-in-cheek music video that mocked the media's treatment of the incident. The song became a hit, and George's decision to turn a moment of personal pain into a bold statement of self-acceptance was widely admired. He also became a vocal advocate for LGBTQ+ rights, using his platform to raise awareness about issues affecting the community, particularly in the context of the AIDS crisis, which had personally affected him through the loss of Philippa. George's advocacy was not limited to LGBTQ+ issues. He became increasingly politically outspoken in his later career, using his music to address global issues and challenge political leaders. His 2002 single, Shoot the Dog, was a satirical commentary on the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom during the lead-up to the Iraq War, showing that George was unafraid to use his music as a vehicle for protest. These later works reflected his growing confidence in expressing his views, both personal and political, through his art. However, despite the personal liberation that came with embracing his sexuality and becoming more politically engaged, George's life continued to be marked by personal struggles. His battles with depression and addiction were well documented, often sensationalized by the media. The tabloids were relentless, and George's struggles with drugs and run-ins with the law were frequently splashed across the front pages. Yet, behind the headlines, George was dealing with deep personal pain, much of it rooted in the loss of loved ones and the emotional toll of living much of his life in the public eye. The deaths of both his mother and Anselmo Philippa had a profound effect on him, and he later described these losses as defining moments in his life. The pain of these tragedies was something that George carried with him, often seeking solace in music, but also at times turning to substances as a way to cope. His personal struggles became inseparable from his public image, but through it all, George remained a beloved figure in the eyes of his fans, who appreciated his honesty, his vulnerability, and his extraordinary talent. In the final years of his life, George Michael's legacy as both a musical icon and a trailblazer for LGBTQ+ rights became ever more apparent. His ability to craft timeless pop hits, combined with his willingness to be open about his personal struggles, made him a figure of enduring relevance. Despite the challenges he faced, both personal and public, George remained true to himself, leaving behind a body of work that continues to inspire generations of fans and musicians alike. His death in 2016 marked the end of an era, but his music and his message of self-acceptance and resilience live on. Personal struggles and triumphs. While George Michael's music career soared, his personal life remained tumultuous. He faced several legal and personal challenges, including arrests for drug-related offenses and battles with depression. These struggles often made headlines, overshadowing his musical achievements. However, George never shied away from discussing his hardships, using his platform to raise awareness about addiction, mental health, and the pressures of fame. One of the defining moments in George's personal life was the death of his first love, Anselmo Philippa, in 1993, due to an AIDS-related illness. This loss devastated George and profoundly influenced his music. Songs like Jesus to a Child and You Have Been Loved were written in memory of Anselmo, and they remain some of the most poignant and emotional songs in George's catalog. The grief he experienced during this time was immense, and it left a lasting impact on his mental health. In 1997, George suffered another heartbreaking loss when his mother, Leslie, passed away from cancer. George was incredibly close to his mother, and her death plunged him into a deep depression. In interviews, he spoke about how the double blow of losing both Anselmo and his mother within a few years of each other left him feeling directionless and numb. Despite these personal tragedies, George continued to create music. His 1996 album, Older, was a deeply reflective and somber work, addressing themes of love, loss, and mortality. The album was a commercial success in Europe and received critical acclaim for its maturity and emotional depth. However, George's personal struggles were far from over. In the early 2000s, George faced multiple arrests related to drug use, and his battles with addiction became increasingly public. These incidents led to a period of introspection for George, who admitted that he had used substances to cope with the pressures of fame and the grief that had followed him throughout his life. Despite these setbacks, George remained resilient, often using humor and candor when discussing his struggles in interviews. A legacy of music and advocacy. On December 25, 2016, George Michael passed away at the age of 53, leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate with fans and fellow musicians alike. His sudden death shocked the world, and tributes poured in from all corners of the globe, celebrating a career that had spanned 4 decades and influenced countless artists. George Michael's music remains timeless, with hits like Careless Whisper, Faith, and Freedom, 90, still beloved by fans today. His ability to blend pop sensibilities with soul, R&B, and balladry made him one of the most versatile and talented performers of his generation. But beyond his musical achievements, George's legacy also includes his advocacy for LGBTQ+ rights, his philanthropy, and his openness about mental health and addiction. Throughout his life, George quietly donated millions to charities, often without seeking recognition. He supported causes ranging from AIDS research to children's hospitals, and was known for his generosity to individuals in need. Stories of George's anonymous acts of kindness only came to light after his death, further cementing his reputation as not just a pop star, but a compassionate and generous human being. George's legacy continues to grow in the years following his death. His music has experienced a resurgence in popularity, with new generations discovering the timeless appeal of his work. His contributions to pop culture, not only through his music but also through his activism, have solidified his place as one of the most important artists of the 20th and 21st centuries. The enduring appeal of George Michael. George Michael's influence on music and culture is undeniable. His voice, often described as one of the most powerful and emotive of his generation, left an indelible mark on pop music. Artists such as Adele, Sam Smith, and Elton John have cited George as a major influence on their own careers, and his ability to blend genres and push boundaries continues to inspire musicians today. But George's appeal goes beyond his music. His personal struggles, his triumphs, and his willingness to speak openly about his life made him a relatable figure to millions. In a world where celebrity often feels distant and unattainable, George Michael remained grounded, using his fame to support causes and bring attention to issues that mattered. In the years since his passing, George's music has only grown in significance. His songs, with their messages of love, heartache, and self-acceptance, continue to resonate with new generations of listeners. His legacy as a musical pioneer and a voice for the marginalized remains strong, and his impact on the world of music and culture will be felt for many years to come. George Michael was more than just a pop star. He was an artist who used his platform to connect with people on a deeper level. His music provided a soundtrack to the lives of millions, and his openness about his personal struggles made him a symbol of resilience and authenticity. While his life was often marked by hardship, George's legacy is one of love, compassion, and a commitment to using his voice for good. As we remember George Michael, we celebrate not only his incredible contributions to music, but also the man behind the hits, a man of depth, complexity, and heart. His songs will continue to play, and his message of love and acceptance will endure for generations to come.